Hey y'all. I got this question on my Instagram, and it was in regards to my Deuteronomy 28 video where I was saying how, the Israelites, there was the blessings and the curses, and the Israelites would be blessed if they obeyed God and his commandments, and they would be cursed if they disobeyed God and his commandments, and then they chose, to disobey God, and they received the curses. So I said that in my Deuteronomy 28 video. And someone asked me this question. And the question was, did we really disobey God, or did they just put that in there to justify it? And I assume they, meaning, white people or people from different nations, right? So, did we really disobey God, or did they put that in there to justify it? And I thought about that question. And to be honest with you, I was irritated, and I didn't really know how to feel about it, because I'm like, are we not looking at what is going on in our own community? A lot of times I feel like black people, we disregard what goes down in our own community. We always deflect, and we put the blame on the white man. Like, oh, the reason why we're unaliving each other in our community is because of the white man. Now, don't get it twisted. There are systems that were created to oppress us. Absolutely. Like, I'm not about to sit here and disregard that by any means. This country is still very racist. Like, that is a fact. With that being said, we also need to realize that when you think about it, white folk not liking us or feeling like they're superior to us, or, whatever the case may be, them having those thoughts doesn't prevent us from following God's commandments. Like, at all. Like, think about it. Somebody feeling like they're superior to you, or having these thoughts, this ideology, doesn't prevent you from following God's commandments. Like, what is it that other people do to us that prevents us from following God's commandments? I think this is really what we need to sit down and have a conversation about, and truly just admit that no, a lot of things that go on in our community is because people are choosing to sin. Point blank, period. I feel like in 2022, a lot of the things that go down is because we're choosing to do that. Nobody is forcing us to do that anymore. Our own people get paid to promote sin. And then when we call them out on that, they say, oh, well, it's the white man that owns these record labels, and they're the ones, if we try to promote anything positive, then they won't promote our stuff. And my question then becomes, then if you know this, why do you continue to promote sin? Nobody's forcing you to do that. Nobody forced you to sign that contract. You made a decision because you want to get money to support sin. And then what happens is that we start justifying. Oh, well, I'm trying to get to the bag. It's okay if we push a little sin. And then what does sin, when you sow sin, what do you expect to reap? You reap what you sow, right? So if you're sowing sin, what do you expect to reap on the back end? A bountiful harvest? Like, it doesn't make any sense. And I'm so sick and tired of us not being accountable to our nonsense. Y'all, these systems that we're talking about today, like keeping us down, like, these systems existed back in the day, like back during the 60s and 50s and 40s. They existed back in the day, and even back then we had more community than we do now. Back then, we weren't promoting sin like what we're doing now on a global scale. So are we really going to sit here and continue to blame everybody else but ourselves? Because God already said in his word, he's coming back to judge this nation, America, Mystery Babylon. He's coming back to judge. So God already said straight up, yeah, I'm going to handle that. So what next? God is going to do his part. So isn't it time for us to do our part, which is to turn away from sin? The person who presented the question, did we really disobey, or did they put that in there to justify? I felt like they were asking it because they genuinely, wanted to know. But I feel like they didn't truly think about the question they're asking. Because when you go back in the word and see what the Israelites were doing, like specifically what they were doing to disobey God, we're doing the exact same thing today. Perfect example. One thing that the Israelites did was they sacrificed their sons and daughters to the gods of the nations that they wanted to be like. They shed innocent blood. We do that in our community today. We don't acknowledge it as such because, black folk, we can't sin. It's because of white people is that, that's the reason why we do what we do. As if we don't have free will. We give white folks way too much power. But anywho, we do that in our community today. How do we do that? These clinics. Yeah, when we unalive our unborn babies, you're shedding innocent blood. Back during those times, they weren't running to the clinics because they didn't have Planned Parenthood back then. But they were giving up their children to these gods. God said himself in his word that y'all were sacrificing your sons and daughters. That's an abomination to me. You're shedding innocent blood. That's an abomination to me. Because when you think about it, Jesus Christ came in the flesh and his blood was shed and he was completely innocent. And we do that to our sons and daughters today. We don't even think twice about that. One of the commandments is to not sleep with somebody who's not your spouse. And we do that all the time. We promote that in our music, in our media. And then it leads to us, getting pregnant. And then it leads to us unaliving our unborn babies. Because when sin is fully grown, death is the harvest from that. But we don't acknowledge that. We will look at that situation somehow, some way. We'll be like, oh, well, it's the white people putting the clinics in the neighborhoods and stuff. Absolutely. You're absolutely right. They influence us to do certain things. But you do know that you have free will, right? A lot of us are running around here living in sin and waiting for another group of people to change. And then once they change, then we'll change. Tomorrow isn't promised to anybody. So what are you doing waiting for somebody else to change? And then that's when you decide to not be disobedient to God anymore? Make it make sense. I'm sick and tired of us acting like the only way we're able to move forward and to start obeying God is if white people change. I'm so sick and tired of that. I'm so tired of that. And I feel like it does a disservice and to us as a people and to our ancestors who came before us. Because one thing's for certain is that our folks back in the day, like back during slavery, they were forced to do things. They were forced to do certain things. Us in 2022 are not forced to do what we're doing today at all. Nobody's forcing us to do this. We're choosing to sin. Why? Because we see sin as, oh, well, I can get a bag from that. I can get some clout off of that. And then we do it. And then we turn around and complain when it's harvest time. You know, I'm sick and tired of seeing us unalive each other on the streets and then crying about it and not realizing that we are choosing to do that. And don't get me started on, one of these cops out here unaliving us. And then, oh my gosh, we want to protest. Oh, the white man unalived one of us. But Day and Taquan got beef. They unalive each other. And then it's, oh, R.I.P. such and such. I'm so tired of the hypocrisy. And if I'm tired of the hypocrisy, I know the Most High is. I know he is. And this is why I understand why he said it's going to be a remnant. Because the reality is that the majority of us aren't going to stop living in unrighteousness. Because in this world, you get money to live in sin. Like, unrighteousness pays the bills in this world, right? We don't want to give that up. Many of us don't have a problem with the system at all. We just have a problem with our position in it. That's all it is. If we just kept it a stack with each other, that's all it is, really. We don't have a problem with this system. We just have a problem when we're called out on our nonsense. That's why when we talk about what's going on in our own community, people deflect. Oh, well, white people doing that. Well, white people doing this. Well, I'm not talking about them. I'm talking about what's going on in our community. Let's stay focused. It's giving very much all lives matter. But I'm just venting at this point because I'm sick and tired of the hypocrisy. And that question really just made me think, like, how blinded we are to our own nonsense. We walk around like our own stuff don't stink. Like, I felt like that question was the perfect example of how we deflect. Did we really disobey God? Or did they just put that in there to justify? And it's like, y'all, we're disobeying God today as we speak. I'm gonna leave y'all with this. You want to know the thing that made me truly believe that we are the Israelites of the Bible? Our disobedience. The Israelites were so disobedient to God, and God was so merciful. When you go and read in the word how many chances he gave the Israelites to do right. And I said, there is absolutely no way this can't be us. Because what the Israelites were doing back then, we are doing today. Our disobedience is what sets us apart from everybody else. And God said, I want y'all to be set apart. And what the Israelites do, they wanted to be just like everybody else, just like we're doing today. We want to be just like everybody else. Well, how come they're doing that? How come we're not allowed to do that? And God is like, because I don't want y'all doing that. But what do? Oh, we're going to disobey you, God, and we're going to do what these other nations do. And then turn around and complain why we can't get up in life. You can't tell me that book ain't about us, y'all. It just is what it is. But yeah, I leave y'all with that. Just something to think about, And just remember that white people not liking you or feeling that they're inferior to you or whatever, superior to you or whatever the case may be, doesn't prevent you from following the commandments.